A big game and a big opportunity squandered in what felt like deja vu on Sunday night at Footprint Center as the Phoenix Suns fell to the Oklahoma City Thunder 118-110. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, what went wrong, why it all felt so familiar, and of course, what it means. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back, and so am I. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Monday following a disappointing Suns loss. Thank you for being here, though, spending your Monday, your post-game Monday with us, no matter rain or shine. Excited to be back. If you're finding us for the first time, hit follow or subscribe. We're free and available everywhere, including YouTube. So just hit that button, get a new show in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer along with me and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns all season long with the show. Today's episode brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Again, final score 118-110. Happy to be here with you guys just off the top. Going to get to the moment of the game here, which actually was very early on in the game. Was a sign of things to come, but I will not be missing any more chunks of the season. It is very unlike me. If you are an everydayer, you know that I have been doing this show solo since November of 2020. In some form or fashion since November of 2017. This is the only time that I have ever taken more than a day or two off in the middle of the season. But it was sort of a delayed honeymoon with my wife and I. We went to the United Kingdom. We were able to visit London and Edinburgh and the Scottish Highlands, and really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Had a killer deal on flight prices that we could not pass up, and wanted it to be during the All-Star break. Sort of ended up being a prolonged All-Star break that I created for myself. But the content is back. I am back. The Suns season is back, and it's a huge week. It's a huge test this week, and the Thunder game was the first one, and the Suns did not pass that test so far. Step 1 of that test was a failure. So let's get to the moment of the game, which was, in my opinion, the minute in the first quarter when Bradley Beal checked out of the game. 5 minutes and 33 seconds to go in the first, so about 6.5 minutes into the game. The Suns were up 11. From that moment through the rest of the first half, the Suns would be outscored by 25 points. And really, if you extend that all the way through the middle of the third quarter or so, when the Suns were down as much as 24, I think 24 was the biggest lead, then obviously you're talking about being outscored by 35 points. From that moment that Beal checked out through the middle of the third quarter, when the Suns finally got their heads screwed on, made their push, which to me, frankly, if I'm being honest, this game, even with the push the Suns made, I don't really think OKC was ever all that uncomfortable. You know, they have a clutch weapon with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that they were able to show. But really, Shai and the ups and downs of his game is the biggest reason why I point this moment out. Okay? So to rewind all the way back to the moment we're actually talking about, which is 5:33 of the first quarter, when Bradley Beal checks out of the game. It was an impressive response by OKC. Okay, because the Suns build this lead by, frankly, getting a little bit lucky, I would almost have to say. Like, it wasn't as if one consistent thing was working over and over, I guess, right? And even at the point that I'm talking about, they had 17 points with 5 minutes to go. That's pretty normal in the NBA these days. So it wasn't as if they exploded out of the gates. They just kind of built their lead slowly but surely. And the main thing that they did at the beginning of that first quarter was that they, as a team, executed really well guarding Shea. All right, I think that's the number one reason that they got out to their lead. But around this point, a little beforehand, if we're being honest, maybe the Chet Holmgren bucket at 7:17 might have been when I felt this shift happening. But really, they get the ball out of Shea's hands, so they start using Jalen Williams as an initiator. Around the 8-minute mark, you see Shea get a catch-and-shoot jumper off of a screen. Again, you see Chet start to play bully ball a little bit, take advantage of the matchup that he had against Royce O'Neal. And so the Thunder offense starts to click, right? So they score right before Beal checks out. Then right after that, Chet gets another couple of buckets. Hayward gets a jumper, and suddenly it's only a 5-point game. So it goes from 11 points to 5 points in about a minute. And the other thing that started to happen at that point is the Suns really missed Beal's energy. He didn't have the craziest strong start to the game. I think when he checked out, he had maybe 4 points and 1 assist, I want to say. Maybe 4 points, 1 assist. I think that sounds right. Maybe not even an assist, maybe just the 4 points. But you felt his absence immediately because it turned into, well, look, it's a couple things, right? It turned into less ball movement, ISO ball, the familiar issues we've seen the Suns have when any one of the big three has been out of the game, has been hurt. But that wasn't just because of effort or energy or things like that, and I'll get to the Durant side of it in a moment. But the other thing we're obviously seeing this team deal with, which happens anytime they have to go away from their core best lineups, is that they don't have enough depth. They don't have enough, especially offensive depth, right? So by the point that Beal checks out of the game, again, 5 minutes and 33 seconds, you are now already down to, so Gordon comes in for him, and shortly after that, you have Eubanks come in, and then, before long, you have Saben Lee come in about 2 minutes later. So right there, you're already down to Lee and Eubanks, who are not really offensive threats, although they connected for a couple of lob dunks somehow in this stretch. Lee and Eubanks did. That's not exactly who you want to be really involved in the offense, but hey, kudos to them for making it work. You did not get a very good bowl game here. I did not understand the David Roddy minutes, despite the fact that, okay, Okogie is injured. That's fine. You got to go somewhere. I get that. But, I get that Roddy and Thad Young do different things. I might have just advocated for Thad Young to play anyway, if it were up to me. But that's where you end up to, right? So the offense feels bogged down. Yes, some of it is laziness. Some of it is a lack of energy, especially when Nurkic and Beal went off. But some of it, too, is just, what do you do when teams default guarding a defensive scheme against a Durant ISO or a Durant post-up is to double at some point, either immediately on the catch, either when he's driving, whatever the case may be, late in the clock, etc. And you have obvious guys to double from, right? It's just you're giving the teams an out when they're already looking for one in a really tough way. And so that domino effect spilled into the second quarter. It happened at times in the fourth quarter. And again, from the point that Beal checked out after that hot start to about midway point of the third quarter, the Suns got outscored by 35 points. They make a run to close the third. They keep things relatively close in the fourth and give themselves a chance. But if those issues don't bite them and they're able to figure out some solutions, I would say, even if they had kept their defensive push and their defensive execution at a high level when Beal left the court, they could have sustained the offensive drop-off, but they couldn't even do that, and it compounds into what eventually lost them the game. But obviously, I'm glossing over a little bit of what goes on in these moments when they are trying to get Kevin Durant going and failing. And it's not just tonight, so I think it's worth examining a little bit closer as we zoom out for our big picture takeaway of the game. We'll do that coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So, bet on all your favorite NBA players as the stretch run continues, including quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props provided by FanDuel, and much more. If we just look at the money line side of things here, or the score line, I should say, Suns Nuggets Tuesday night, no line yet. We do have on Monday here, the Clippers are 5.5-point favorites on the road in Milwaukee. That should be a very good game. And the Thunder, only 1-point underdogs on the second night of a back-to-back in Los Angeles. That should be a good one as well. So, of course, just bet straight up. Bet some of the fun stuff that FanDuel offers. Whatever it is, go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official partner of the NBA. Keeping it rolling here, let's talk about Kevin Durant. So, 6 of 15 from the field, 5 turnovers, just 3 assists, 20 total points, only gets to the line 6 times, and the Suns are outscored by 9 points in the minutes that Durant is on the court, compared with 10, plus 10 for Nurkic's minutes, plus 5 the minutes that Beal was out there, meaning very clearly that the minutes in which only Durant was on the court out of the core players on the team were when the Suns lost this game. So, talked about that as the moment of the game, but let's talk a little bit about why that is going on and the broader trend that I think we're seeing, right? Because it's not just this game. Since the break, 9 of 22 with 5 turnovers against Dallas on the road, 10 of 22, not as bad of a game, still had 8 assists, only 2 turnovers on the road in Houston the next night. 7 of 20, a win against the Lakers. I did watch that game just for reference, and I do want to shout out the Locked On Suns Insider subscribers. You can get my thoughts on all things Suns, game day observations, any news or rumors around the team, my instant reaction, my deep dive stuff that the podcast audience doesn't get, that my Twitter audience does not get. That's Locked On Suns Insiders. You can sign up at the link in the show description or go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSuns to sign up. And I was sending my thoughts out while I was on my trip to the Locked On Suns Insiders. I caught that Lakers game. I caught that Rockets game. Caught the end of the Mavs game. And some of this, I have to say, is, especially in that Lakers game, I would say, missing easy shots, missing weird ones, right? Layups, blowing bunnies, blowing mid-range jumpers, and uncharacteristic stuff for Durant. So I don't want to bring the hammer down too hard, but we're talking about 6 games now where 5 out of the 6 since the break, Durant has been below 50% from the field, and in 3 of the 6, he has had 5 or more turnovers. All right, and those are anomalies. And so you could say, okay, ignore it, or you could look at it and say something is going on. And as we zoom in on the Thunder game, I mean, it's a perfect example, right? Whether it was Dylan Brooks in those Rockets games or Dort in this one, it's familiar issues. And it's especially bad. It flares up worse when the Suns don't have all three of the big three healthy. When they are relying on lesser players like a Saban Lee, like a Drew Eubanks to step up, do more than they are usually asked to do, because again, that allows the defense to help off of those players. It just takes the offense out of rhythm in general. It multiplies the amount of times where Durant has to make something out of nothing. And whether you like it or not, Durant is at a phase of his career where against the best defenses, against the best teams, against the best game plans, there is going to be some number of possessions in a game where he is going to have opportunities created for him. He is not in a position in his career anymore where he is somebody that you can toss the ball to and expect that, a 30 to 40% usage rate, 30 to 40% of possessions, he can just manufacture a great shot at the highest level to win games. He can do that, against the Rockets on certain nights, right? He can do that on, against Utah before the break at home, 14 of 23 from the field, barely, breaks a sweat, and the Suns win by 14, right? He can do that. But there are going to be games where he cannot. And I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm not saying that it is an every night thing. Either, right? Like in a playoff series, let's say the Suns get the Thunder in the first round. I would bet you there are 1, 2, 3 games in that series where actually he just handles Dort. Like it looks the same, but the shots just go in. He doesn't struggle. But there are going to be nights when he does. And that's fine, right? Steph Curry, LeBron James, whoever you want to point to, guys at this age, even Chris Paul during the Suns' finals year and whatnot, guys in their mid-30s are not the same players as they were in their mid-20s. And that's just the reality that the Suns are being confronted with. So let's zoom in a little bit more on this game and what happened, because Frank Vogel opened his post-game press conference by saying that they fouled the SHIT out of Kevin Durant. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they do. I mean, we watch, right? He's getting smacked. There were a lot of, I think, times when, to the Suns' credit, and I tweeted this out, the first 2 possessions out of the second half, you can tell that they broke down some ways in which Durant could get free, similar to what I just said the Thunder did in the first quarter to get Shea open, get him off the ball, right? Exactly what I just said. There are some nights where you play a Lou Dort and you got to get creative because you can't just dribble the ball into his chest and expect good things to happen. He has 3 steals. So they do that, right? And even on those plays, the second one, the first one, Durant catches the ball middle of the court off of a pin down around the elbow, catches it. Isaiah Joe can't really double him because Beal is being Joe's man, basically. So if Isaiah Joe doubles toward Durant in the middle of the court, he's leaving an easy pass to Beal for 3, and Durant gets a bucket out of that. Plenty of wide open space around him, works to perfection. Right away, next possession, they try to do something similar. Dort blows it up. And not only Dort, but guys in the realm of the off-ball screen that Durant is trying to come off of are just in his way. They're getting physical. They are using their hands. There's definitely contact happening. And it's a turnover. And that happens. I mean, of course, and especially if you want to talk about the ISOs and the post-ups, of course, like these younger, more athletic defenders are resorting to whatever they can figure out that's going to work. I mean, it's not unlike what Bruce Brown or Russell Westbrook or Eric Gordon even were doing to Durant in last year's playoffs for this Suns team. We've seen it. You know, you want to go back to the first round against the Celtics in 2022. Durant was uncharacteristic, and it led him to want to leave that team because it got so ugly. That was a similar situation, right? The physicality of the opposing defense really affected him. That's going to happen. And so, not every team has a Lou Dort, but the best teams do, right? You know, Denver has Aaron Gordon even. The Wolves have Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards, and on. Rudy Gobert at the basket. The Thunder have Dort. The Clippers have Kawhi and Paul George and, you know, any number of other Terrence Mann type guys. The Suns need to be ready for this. It should not come as such a surprise every single time or require such a low before you can return to the highs that you need to hit in order to beat these teams. And the result is you're going to keep losing to them. It's not just because of this Durant situation, this Durant performance that the Suns lost, but in a night without Booker, where Beal was 10 of 14, Nurkic had 14 and 31, and the Suns won the minutes when those two guys were on the court, made a good amount of threes. Yes, the turnovers were a huge issue, but the turnovers go along with this. Forcing the ball to him in poor position, not having things ready to go for how to get him open, what to run to maximize a certain matchup they want to attack or a certain area of the court that they want to go to, and just sort of hoping that the same stuff will work. That's how the turnovers happen. So it's all connected. It is a little bit of a pattern against the best teams and in certain stretches of the season. And yes, Booker coming back will help it, but it's happened too often to not be worried, and it may be the Suns' kryptonite that undoes their season, is not having enough structure and consistency and I guess I don't want to say IQ, like the players don't play with a high IQ, but the collective team IQ and cohesion not being there. That might be what it is that we look back on as the problem. Let's hope they bounce back. 2 big tests the rest of the week. Denver and, of course, the Celtics on Saturday. But let's dive into some of the more specifics as we close out the show with our usual rapid fire recap segment, starting with the Nurk Report coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, the best place to play daily fantasy sports. It's demon time at Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, turning $10 into $1,000. Demons and Goblins are the new and most exciting way to play at Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks. I love Prize Picks because it's simple. There's no pool. There's no head-to-head. There is no league. It is simply you versus the Prize Picks player projections. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. You get quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types, all adding up to make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA to sign up and use the code LockedOnNBA when you make your first deposit to get that first deposit matched up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Closing out the show, the Nurk Report. That is the segment where we break down all things Jusuf Nurkic. And this was a crazy one. I mean, he had 12 rebounds in the first quarter when he checked out. Ends up with 31, which I believe was not only a season high for a career high for him, I believe it was a franchise record, if I'm not mistaken, and the season high in the NBA. So, record breaking in a whole bunch of ways. And they needed it. They needed it because, you know, again, even when they were able to get some clean looks off, they were taking so many threes, and some of their core stuff was a little off, whether that was Allen or Durant, that there were a lot of loose balls. There were a lot of offensive rebounding opportunities, and Nurkic was able to get 13. Obviously, that's a weakness of OKC in general, is the glass. The Suns out-rebounded them on the offensive glass, defensive glass, and overall by 9. And I think you would even have to say that Nurkic's presence on the court just helped the flow of the offense, too, in a game where the Suns were in need of it. He mentioned the foul situation post-game as well. And look, the Suns did get to the line more times than the Thunder. The only guy, and we'll get to this in a second, the only guy who would attack the basket, Bradley Beal in this game, got rewarded with 10 free throw attempts. So it's hard for me to really dissect the foul situation too much personally. But Nurkic mentioned, hey, I got 13 offensive rebounds. He's fighting tooth and nail on all these possessions on the defensive glass as well, and somehow 0 free throw attempts. And hey, that's fine. Chet got 5. So maybe you could look at that and say, hold on. Chet spends a lot of time away from the basket, certainly was not as involved possession to possession on the glass as Nurkic, and he gets 5. Well, the ball's in his hands more, I think you would have to say, as a scorer. He had a couple and ones and whatnot. But sure, maybe there's something to be said there. I guess I just look at it from the other standpoint, and this is really the purpose of the Nurk report, is not to get granular on the X's and O's, but really to discuss the sillier elements of the Jusuf Nurkic experience. And I look at it, and to me, the complaining and exaggeration to try to get these calls is not what you want, okay? It's not a good situation to be in. And at the end of the day, the Suns, I think they're getting enough calls, right? I think that's not a problem to me. I get the frustration, I get whatever. But if you're that type of player, and credit to Jusuf Nurkic for buying in and becoming that type of player. But if you're going to be that guy, the dirty work guy, the hustle guy, the whatever, you're not going to be the player who gets a bunch of 50-50 foul calls, right? Like that's just not necessarily going to be the case. And he had a couple of situations where he had opportunities to score and bobbled the catch or turned the ball over or missed some interior opportunities. Not saying that automatically gets you the free throws you want, but that certainly would go a longer way toward the type of impact that I think you were hoping to have on top of being the rebounder in this game that you were. So I guess that's what I would point to, is you just got to put your head down and commit to it. And those fouls won't always get there for you. And that just is the reality of the situation. That wouldn't have been the difference between winning and losing, I guess, is my point. Box score oddity will round out here. Both the Suns and the Thunder were relatively low when it comes to efficiency at the rim in this one, which is a little weird. But it's interesting, right? Kind of bouncing off of the free throw thing that I just talked about with both Durant and with Nurkic. The Suns got 5. They drew 5 fouls when they drove to the basket. Only 1 for the Thunder, despite OKC actually getting one more shot off at the rim. So that should be all the evidence you need from a Suns standpoint that, hey, it may not be easy. It may not be anybody's default setting on this roster in terms of the scorers on this team to get ahead of steam and drive downhill to the basket. It might not be natural, but it's necessary to generate those shots, to generate threes on the backside, and to generate free throw attempts and get this offense flowing the way that it needs to. I think the best moments from this Suns offense in this game were Beal getting downhill to the basket. Like, just point blank. And, he had a 29.8% usage rate in this game. I think it actually could have been higher. A lot of those at-rim attempts are more likely to be offensive rebounded, which showed up in the stats for him. 6% of his misses basically were offensive rebounded because he had a focus on the interior. I want to see that again from him on Tuesday against Denver. I want to see it all season long because he is the only guy on this team who really consistently does it. Booker can, but it's not where Booker wants to be. And it is another way for him to make his impact felt. So there's a little bit of a shout out to Beal to end the show because, look, it was a little bit of a negative one because I think Suns fans are feeling negative and it was a disappointing game, but Beal was great. Outside of the 7 turnovers, which I think I spent plenty of time on, 10 of 14 from the field, 3 of 5 from deep, 8 of 10 from the free throw line, and 31 total points in a game where you got ejected, you coming off this hamstring, and Booker's out. That's exactly what you would have wanted to see from him, and he showed up. And especially getting downhill, trying to score in the paint, and creating opportunities for your teammates off of that is exactly what you need to see more of, and really what's going to help this team's consistency, which has not been there. That'll wrap us up for the day. Great to be back again. Don't forget to sign up for Locked On Suns Insiders. Get all my thoughts on game day, on off days with news and rumors. And we're going to start doing some Q&As, some mailbags, some video content as that list grows. I'm 5 away from a milestone, a round number, and I will commit to you guys that if we can get to that round number, I'm actually 6 away from it. Let's get 6 more signups for the Locked On Suns Insider community where you can be in the know about the Suns all the time, get my thoughts directly to your phone on everything going on with the team. Then I will do a insider-specific, insider-exclusive mailbag where I will record an episode that only goes out to those people answering only questions from the insider community. All right? Sound good? Let's shake on that. 6 of you can sign up, and I will send that episode out. Bonus content exclusively for you. All right? That will wrap us up. Enjoy your Monday. I will be back with an episode Tuesday, and then again Tuesday night, post-game, following Suns Nuggets. I'll talk to you then.